anyway, we do have a Raw review to do, so I'm going to move on now. We have Triple H come out, and we pretty much get a recap of all the issues that he's had with Sting. We come back, and of course, fans are chanting for Sting, and Triple H says, the word going around the street is that I'm afraid of Sting now, and then he actually laughs, and he goes on to say, that's laughable. I almost feel like you should have said it first and then laughed, but the laugh kind of preceded that, whatever.
He should have hired Tony Atlas to laugh for him.
That was a pretty solid impersonation there. But ultimately, we come to Ric Flair showing up, and Triple H holds the ring ropes open for him so Flair can get in the ring. And Flair says, look, I'm here because I love you and I respect you. I just want to, remind you of that before you and your wife cuss me out like you do other legends like every other week. I mean, you inducted me into the Hall of Fame right here in Florida. You said that I was the greatest wrestler of all time. And, so I guess Flair's just laying the groundwork before he's about to break Triple H's heart, I guess, because he's just reminding him of their history. And then Triple H, cuts Flair off, and he says, hey, if you're here to sing the praises of Sting, save your breath. I already know how good Sting is. And then Flair says, hey, brother, like I said, I care about you and I love you. I just want to tell you not to take Sting lightly. Flair says, like Vince McMahon used to tell him, don't put yourself in a position to fail. Triple H says he's a student of the game. He knows how good Sting is, and brings up the legendary Sting versus Flair Clash of the Champions matchup that they had in WCW. Triple H says Sting was and is WCW. Triple H says when all the other rats were jumping ship, Sting stayed at WCW until it sank, and he respects that. Triple H says if Sting would have came to WWE, it would have been his personal mission to run Sting out of the company because Sting's legacy was built on Flair's reputation.
You know what I love, though?
What's that?
I love that Triple H says all the rats that were jumping ship. It seems to me he's one of them because he was in WCW before he got to WWE.
Not only that, but as many people pointed out, as I was watching this, I mean, one of those rats that you like to talk about is doing commentary for you right now in Booker T.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Booker T didn't jump ship though.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, no. Well, yeah, he came
over through the invasion.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm talking about people that jumped ship before WCW went under.
Right.
Like you've got a really long list there, including literally 2 of the 3 most popular guys from the Attitude Era, Mick Foley and Stone Cold Steve Austin. They were in WCW before they showed up in WWE. And, I mean, it's a list that also includes guys like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, who they wouldn't have acknowledged anyway. Of course, Triple H himself was one of them. It's a pretty prestigious list to be on there if you jumped from WCW to WWE. It's like the early adopters. Like, to me, that's a prestigious thing, not like oh, look at these rats. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Like, screw you, man. But then I gotta say, I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a complimentary mood, and I don't know. But
I mean, really, it almost would have made more sense if he would have called the people who stuck with WCW until it went out of business as rats, because that would have made more sense from like a condescending standpoint. Like, oh, those guys were idiots. They didn't know what they were doing. They tried to sink with the ship, but no, he took the exact opposite route, and he insulted the people that came to WWE before WCW went under. And I don't know. I just don't like that logic at all.
Yeah. But as I was getting ready to say, I don't know. Maybe I'm just feeling complimentary tonight, but I really enjoyed Flair's work here. And I know he's been getting a lot of flack for people whenever he does an appearance, like, oh, get ready for Flair to be super drunk or whatever. But I actually really enjoyed his interaction with Triple H here. Yeah. He says,
I mean, he was completely hammered. Don't get me wrong, but it was still high quality work.
Yeah, I mean, he says if Sting would have came to WWE, it would have been his personal mission to run Sting out of the company because Sting's legacy was built on Flair's reputation. Triple H says that always pissed him off, and he would have kicked Sting's ass on principle alone. Flair says Triple H isn't thinking like the cerebral assassin. Triple H says that was then, and now Sting wants to come and take it personal with him. He says Sting wants to take away what Triple H has, WWE. Triple H says Sting is WCW, but he, Triple H, is WWE. Flair tells him to take a deep breath. He says Sting is already getting to Triple H. And then this is where I say that Flair, I think, showed up tonight. because he goes on to say, people ask me who's the best wrestler alive. He tells them Triple H, if he's wrestling. Some fans boo this. Flair says Triple H is an executive now. He's not wrestling full time. He wants Triple H to be the best, to be the game. He doesn't want Sting to sneak up on Triple H. And, he even mentions, it doesn't include in this recap I'm reading here, but he mentions, like, fans were asking him, Nate, do you think Triple H could beat Daniel Bryan? And Flair pretty much just laughed at the question. He said, oh yeah, he'll beat him in 5 minutes. And 30 minutes later, you were laid out. So he's pretty much making the point that, you're not the wrestler Triple H anymore. You're not the cerebral assassin Triple H anymore. You're this executive. And I really like that narrative that Flair brought to the forefront, because I think that should make for a very interesting dynamic. Almost like when Edge had to kind of kill his conscience and get over like his manipulative side with Vicky and just be the ultimate opportunist to beat The Undertaker in the cell.
Yep.
So too is Triple H going to have to be that cold, ruthless cerebral assassin if he hopes to survive Sting. So really nice. I like that touch. Triple H says he respects that. Triple H says he knows Ric Flair has been in the ring with Sting many times, and he knows that he is no Ric Flair. But when it comes to kicking Sting's ass, Flair is no Triple H. And then Flair kind of smiles at that, and he says, well, when I tune into Fastlane on Sunday, I don't want to see you sitting on your ass again like you were last Monday, okay? Is that fair enough? And then in response, Triple H shoves Flair on the mat. Fans boo. And then Triple H looks down at Flair and says, Flair knows that nothing outside of Triple H's wife and kids is more important to him than WWE. Triple H says that he doesn't care who stands between him and WWE. Even if it's Flair, he's kicking their ass. Triple H said if Sting goes on his own or if he beats it out of him, Sting will never show his face again after Fastlane. Triple H drops the mic and fans boo as he walks off to the back. Flair gets to his feet, and we get woo chants before the music hits. Flair leaves on his own to a pop. I don't know if it's because Flair couldn't take a bump like that anyway, but I really wanted to see Triple H pedigree Flair. I felt like that would have been the perfect capper to the segment, because I was into this segment, right? Like, I'll even go as far as say I think this was actually one of the true highlights of the show, if not my favorite, personal segment of the night, in close competition with that ending segment. But, man, it would have been perfection if he just kicked Flair in the gut and pedigreed him, because I think it would have just had so much more poignancy to it emotionally. Like, oh, look at him stabbing his longtime friend and mentor in the back. That must be how much Sting has got him riled up, and he's gotten inside his head. But I guess the shovel sufficed. But I really enjoyed this nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the whole I wish you would have pedigreed him thing, I would imagine that if that was an option, they probably would have gone there, but Flair just isn't in shape to take that kind of bump.
Yeah, and that's what I figured. So that's why I'm cutting it some slack. I mean, he is, older now. So they did the best they could with it. At least they got like a little modicum of physicality with the shove. So I do appreciate that. This was a really brilliant segment. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, based on the reactions I saw, maybe not as much as some people enjoyed this. Darren Young and local wrestler versus the Ascension.
Hello, Cal.
Hello, Cal. Yep. And yeah,
WWE owns the rights.
They own all the rights.
They own your rights, John.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. So the Ascension make their entrance, and they come down and they just start beating them down. Both Darren Young and
they don't give
a
crap. They're not trying to win a match. They just want to beat people up.
Exactly. And then Titus O'Neil runs down and fights off the Ascension. Yes, you heard that right. And him and Darren Young, they take care of the Ascension. And I guess the primetime players have reunited. People were freaking out about this, I kid you not, from where I was watching. And apparently they're huge fans of this team and their theme song. Here's my thing, though, and I'm not trying to crap on a good thing. These guys weren't a big tag team by any means, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe this should have gotten some more hype or something. Maybe like a teaser between him and Titus. And I only say that, I guess, because we just saw Titus and Heath, albeit very briefly, in the tag team turmoil matchup that you and I were talking about earlier on SmackDown last Thursday. So, like, what's the bridge between Titus being Heath's partner and we got Slater Gator? They even have their own theme, to now Titus doing a favor for Darren Young and apparently getting the PTP back together. Like, fill in the gaps for me, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But, anything you want to say about this?
Well, I don't... Man, I guess I'm one of the very few that just plain doesn't get into the primetime players.
Right.
I mean, I don't have a problem with them. I don't have a problem with them all. I understand why people get into it. I just don't. I don't get into it personally. I don't see what's so exciting about it. I mean, the whole millions of dollars thing is catchy, I guess, but it's not like it's this super awesome vehicle meant to push these two amazingly talented, like, to me, I would be more excited if the primetime players were like Uha Nation and Big Rick or something like that. You know what I mean? Like two guys that could really go in the ring. And maybe Big Rick wasn't the best example to use there, but two like legitimately talented in ring workers that maybe just needed some kind of a gimmick to get over. And it's got Titus O'Neil in it. So how can I get excited about that?
It's got Titus O'Neil. Let me just slide that in there. Apparently, I just looked because I was curious. Apparently, the primetime players got a Raw Fallout video, so I'm gonna watch that when we're done here, and maybe that'll fill in the gaps that I've been asking for, because that was really my whole gripe. I totally get where you're coming from, Ashton, with the whole like I can never really just get into these guys, whatever sort of thing. They were never really my cup of tea, but I will say this. I do think in terms of their careers and actually getting TV time and getting somewhere, clearly they're better together than they were apart. Because you even noted on Puitov, they were apart for a whole year, and neither guy did jack in that time. So,
well, for what it's worth, neither guy did jack when they were together either.
True, but at least they got in the tag team title picture once or twice. And again,
well, yeah, by those means, Titus O'Neil got into the NXT title picture.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess by those standards, but then again, I can't really take much away from Darren Young because he was injured apparently and he was doing stuff. I don't know. Look, it was a mess, okay? And they're back together, so we'll see what happens with it. I mean, again, as I said at the beginning, primetime players certainly aren't any notable tag team that's really decorated or anything, but I do think maybe they are better together in terms of, being relevant and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. Watch me be proven wrong, and after this whole Ascension thing, they just, go back underneath the dirt. I don't know. But
wow, you might want to phrase that differently.
Well, I mean, just disappearing and just not being featured anywhere.
Right.
Just not getting any prominence at all.